Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Guerrilla Cricket.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to Guerrilla Cricket. I'm with Aninda Dutta, the author of Wizards, the Story of Indian Spin Bowling, the author of Spellbinding Spells, a man who is up there with Tendulkar, Dravid, Laxman on the Indian bestsellers list, man who knows his cricket. We're going to be talking about the forthcoming series. Starts on Friday, of course, between India and England. Now, if you look at matches overall in India, it's 19-13 to India and 28 draws. If you look at series, it's 7-5 to India and 3 draws. If you, but nonetheless, you could look at 2016 and think, oh my goodness, it was a 4-0 thumping, which of course it was. But times have changed. Can England do it this time, or will India, magnificently victorious in Australia, just be too strong? A lot to talk about. Now, Anindo, hello.
Hello, Tony. Good to be here. I'm absolutely amused that you put me with Dravid, Lakshman, and Tendulkar.
Well, to be fair, you send me an email about once a week with the list of the who's on the bestsellers list for Amazon. So it's you who tells me.
Exactly. You know, if I can't get to their level on the cricket field, I try on the Amazon list. So yeah. It's,
anyway, you think India are going to win this, right? Don't you? Let's get rolling.
Who else is
give me some reasons.
I mean, who else is going to win this? I mean, not England.
All right.
Seriously.
Well, put your money where your mouth is, and let's have
always
have a chat.
If I was a gambling man, that's what I do. Yeah.
Well, you fire away then first. Give me some reasons, or a reason why you feel so confident.
I think India's a better team. Reason 2, they are at home, and it's not necessarily the crowd. I think very seriously, India are in a position of mental strength, if you like, after the last series. I know England's won in Sri Lanka, but I think England will be acutely aware of the fact that the competition that India faced versus competition that England faced was not, let's say, at the same level. So while they will be confident given Root's batting, and the fact that wasn't that some sort of a record where pace bowlers took all the wickets in the one innings and spin bowlers took all the wickets in the second innings, which
it was the first time that had happened. Certainly at that ground, certainly at Gaul. We think in Sri Lanka that pace bowlers took every wicket. We look back over history and we thought we'd found another couple, but then we realised 1 out of the 10 was a run out. So you probably. But if you actually wanted to be technically accurate and say the spinners took every wicket in a first innings, yes, that was the first time.
Well, I mean, if you look at the stats in isolation, it could make you believe that England's got the best bowling attack in the world, and the most well-rounded. Now, the best bowling attack in the world from a pace perspective, I think there are few teams who could lay claim to that at the moment. All the teams who are in contention, I think, for the World Test Championships could lay claim to that one. Mm-hmm. But in terms of a well-rounded bowling attack, I think India has a far superior one. And that's one of the reasons I would say that India has more than an even chance of winning this series convincingly.
Well, let me ask you then very quickly about the wickets. Now, we've heard rumours of an English wicket, which we think might mean a little bit of green, a little bit of help for seam on the first day or maybe day and a half, which helps both sides because India certainly have proven, even with their C team, that they've got a pretty decent seam attack. But, you know, if you look at Archer and Anderson, Broad, and even young Ollie Stone, who I don't think will get too much of a game because I think
And Mark Wood.
Well, Mark Wood, when he comes in, he's not available. He's one of those who's being rested. I don't think that's an IPL issue on his case.
Series.
Yeah. That's some seam attack. Should England be required to bowl first, and I have to assume whoever wins the toss is probably most likely to bat. Therefore, whoever bowls first, that's going to help. That's a tough seam attack to face it under any conditions, isn't it? Whoever they play.
Very, very, very much so. I think Broad Anderson is. As you know from our commentary together, I have huge respect for Anderson. I have more respect for Anderson when he bowls at home than when he bowls abroad. But when he bowls abroad, he's come along in leaps and bounds in the last few years. So you have to respect what he brings with his experience. And 600 plus wickets, right? Nobody gets that by being only a good bowler at home. You've got Archer, who I think in the Test arena has just started, but he's got a very good idea of Indian pitches, having played a bit in the IPL, I think. And you've got Broad, who's always been something to handle. So I think that's I haven't seen much of Ollie Stone, so I won't. It won't be fair for me to comment on him. But I think these three are already a handful for any batting side, as you rightly said.
Well, I've got a little stat for you that you might find vaguely entertaining.
Yeah.
Jimmy Anderson has played in 3 of the 6 games that India have lost at home in the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. So of the games India have lost at home, Jimmy Anderson has played in half of them, 50%, taking 13 wickets in those games at 21. That's a reason to be afraid.
Is that because much of the matches that India's lost at home have been to England? That could be the case as well. So Anderson might not be the only reason, although those are amazing numbers.
I can tell you, 2006 against was England. That was at Mumbai. 2008 was South Africa at Ahmedabad.
Yep.
Where, by the way, I don't think India go quite as well as they go at Chennai.
We'll come to that because
I'm sure you will.
You're making a terrible assumption there. But we'll come to that.
2010 was South Africa again at Nagpur. 2012 was twice, of course. It was Mumbai and Kolkata. And 2017, you'll, I'm sure, remember, was a defeat to Australia, which has now been well avenged. But that was at Pune by 330 odd runs, 333.
That was Steve O'Keefe, I think, taking 8 wickets. Like I said, anyone who's taken 600 plus wickets, you're not going to take any chances against them. But Anderson's not going to win you a series by himself this time, I can assure you. Look at the batting lineup. You've got Shubman Gill, who's very clearly shown in Australia what he's capable of, even on Aussie wickets. And I can tell you he's going to be twice as dangerous at home. You're seeing Rohit Sharma, who I think had a reason for all his, the trash talk about him. He had a very reasonable series in Australia when he came in for the second half. And he and Shubman Gill put on the longest string of reasonably high opening partnerships, which most teams worldwide seem to have forgotten how to do now. So Rohit Sharma at home is about 4 times more dangerous than he is anywhere else. Mm. So you've got a potent opening partnership there. You've got Pujara coming in, who is hopefully going to put even Root to sleep. And then you've got Virat Kohli coming in after that. Then you've got Rahane, and then Hardik Pandya, in all likelihood. Mm-hmm. Once you're done with Hardik Pandya, you've got Rishabh Pant coming in.
Yep.
You look nervous.
Yet in Australia, no, not at all. I was thinking that in Australia, only Ajinkya Rahane made 100.
Ajinkya Rahane does play well on other surfaces, and he's been He's been someone who's played reasonably well abroad, except that other than this 100, he honestly did nothing as far as his batting is concerned in Australia. And people tend to overlook it because of the unbelievable way he led the team at Melbourne with his century to win the match. And I was talking to Simon Toffel some time ago, just having a chat, and according to him, Melbourne was where Australia lost the series. It wasn't at Sydney, it wasn't at Brisbane. It was just, they lost it there in all ways. So that's the batting lineup that you have, right? I'm not sure they're going to be overawed by any of the English bowlers, even before you get to spin.
We'll come on to.
And you mentioned all the wins that England's had, the 3 wins that England's had. I don't think first any of them were at Chennai.
No.
Yeah.
Chennai is not the happiest of hunting grounds.
Exactly.
And
exactly. And you've got 2 test matches.
Yeah, was Chennai.
You've got 2 test matches at Chennai. Chennai typically has been a happy hunting ground for India in the past. Not only for great performances, but also the fact that typically Chennai tends to take spin towards the 4th and 5th days, even starting on the 3rd day maybe. And finally, coming to the point that you made about the English wicket, I don't even know what the guy is talking about. Yeah, I mean,
do you think it's BCCI-driven misinformation being thrown out there to confuse?
Completely possible, right? Yeah, I mean, okay, so even if you have a green wicket, let's go back to that. So then we went through the English attack. So now you've got the Indian bowlers. And do you particularly fancy the English batsmen facing them on a green wicket? I don't think that's going to be any easier than the Indian batsmen facing.
That will be one of the differences between India and Sri Lanka, and I completely understand. There is a different level of quality of opposition there. So Sri Lanka are in a transitionary stage, but for Sibley and Crawley, or Burns if they play a left-hander, facing seam, they will face more seam that they're more used to than they will be. They won't be dealing with Embaldenia bowling the first ball unless India really do spring a surprise.
Absolutely. Let me throw some numbers at you. So Mohammad Shami, Ishant Sharma, Umesh Yadav, Bhuvneshwar Kumar. Not all of them are going to be, playing. Before 2001, before 2015 and post 2015, their averages respectively went from 36 to 24 for Shami, went from 36 to 26 for Ishant Sharma, went from 30 to 22 for Bhuvneshwar Kumar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jasprit Bumrah, started his career after that, so that's not a fair comparison. As of before the start of the Australia series, among the pace bowling attacks in the world, which we were talking about, the Indian pace bowling attack, they had played 24 matches, and they had taken 292 wickets at 21.
Wasn't part of that bullying South Africa and Bangladesh, though?
You bully whoever you get in front. This time it's going to be England.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit like saying we're Manchester United and, we did really well at Crawley in the cup,
Well, England is 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they played more matches, they've taken more wickets, but at 27. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Australia is 4th for their brilliant pace attack. So I think there's something going on here which you cannot discount, and that has come from the investment that India's made in pace bowling over the past few years. Clearly, it's not happened overnight. You didn't have the 9th choice pace bowler and the 5th choice spinner go in and win a test match at the Gabba just because a miracle was about to happen. They did that because they'd been growing into that over the past few years, and that's how the system's been working. And you can't discount that. I think that's the most important
I certainly don't think we would discount that. And indeed, we've said a number of times together on air that I think there's a lot of English people lying awake in their beds listening to Brisbane, and never has India had so many fans. I don't think, certainly not from this
and Guerrilla Cricket. You can go on Guerrilla Cricket and listen to it all over again, right?
Well, that one you can't.
No, that one you can't, right? You didn't do the Brisbane. That's right.
But okay, so you want to talk about form? All right. England 5 consecutive Test wins away from home. That's the first time that has happened in over 100 years. And yes, we had a slightly transitional South Africa and definitely transitional Sri Lanka.
You didn't even manage that 70 years ago when you were sending 2 different teams to 2 different countries at the same time? And calling them MCC and whatever?
No, first time in 100 years, which is some achievement. England are unbeaten in the last 7. They've only lost 1 of their last 11 Test matches. That's some form, Anindo.
Fantastic, and that's about to change.
Well, is it now? Because India, by contrast, since bullying South Africa and Bangladesh at home, you've won just 2 of their last 6 tests. I'm sure you're going to say, but look at where they were and the situations that they were won in. But there you are.
You said that for me.
Indeed.
You said that for me.
You did prior to that win 7 on the bounce in the West Indies and home to South Africa, as I say.
So I think I'd be impressed by that for sure. I mean, come on. I mean, we both know it's a very, very strong, jokes aside, it's a very, very strong English team, right? And they've been doing extremely well. And I think even more than the bowling, I think what should give England hope is Joe Root finally coming back to form. I mean, we've spoken so much about it even in the summer, right? I mean, he was getting 40s and getting out for time and time again. And now finally he's again got that purple patch where he's able to make big centuries. And there's something that I mentioned to you the other day, which I found intriguing, which is that England's never lost a Test match when Joe Root scored a century.
That surprised me.
I was going back and looking at the numbers, and I think he's got 14 tons so far, and I couldn't find a single loss when he had scored any of those tons. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I remember off that top of my head.
That kind of brings us on to let's take Root as our stepping stone to talk about spin. I mean, he's coming up to some landmarks, isn't he, in India? Will it be his 200th, 300th? I should know. Remind me.
Wow.
But anyway, it's a big.
You're asking the wrong person.
It's a huge. It's a big one. He plays spin magnificently. He was probably by far and away the best, batsman technically to deal with Embledenia, who caused everyone else quite a lot of problems. His sweep shots were just extraordinary. And he averages something like 300 playing the sweep shot recently, which is pretty amazing. Do we think he's back in the Fab Four? He kind of left it for a while. They'd sort of He was the he was the Pete Best of the Fab Four, but he's back in surely.
I think so for sure. I mean, there is no Fab Four without him. I think, and again, all batsmen go through bad patches, like we know. So it was a matter of time before Root came back. It was a reasonably long period that he's been on, but it's a matter of time before he came back. I think Alistair Cook went through the same thing, right? But at least Joe Root is a much more entertaining batsman than Alistair Cook. Sorry, Cook could sometimes put me to sleep, not as much as Tavares, but not too far from there.
Well, England have got Jonathan Trott advising here. So
exactly. So there's always that
if you want
danger,
attritional grinding those out those big innings over a long period of time, there's a man to do it for you.
Absolutely. But I think, sweeping is it gives me nightmares of Matthew Hayden, and I've been talking about that recently with another friend as well. That whole series, Matthew Hayden swept his way, or swept Australia to a win, literally. and India could do nothing about it, right? Will Joe Root manage to replicate that? Well, I think once bitten, twice shy. So India's, I think, sworn never to let another foreign batsman get away with that, and one learns. And I think a lot has changed since then as far as strategizing is concerned within teams, and how much they study other teams and things like that with video and strategy. So I don't think he's going to have quite that success in India, perhaps as he did in Sri Lanka, and India will find a way, if they haven't found one already, to contain that part of his game. But it's probably the part of his game that's going to hold him in best stead during this series.
Well, we'll come on to the spinners in a second. But I do have a question. Are India perhaps a little over-reliant on Ravi Ashwin? Because you've lost Jadeja. You lost Jadeja. That leaves Ashwin as being very much the senior, most experienced, certainly most experienced of the spin bowling options, doesn't it?
Okay, this might surprise you, but left to me, and of course no one's asking me, other than you.
I'm sure they've read one of your books.
I'm sure.
Virat Kohli, even now, is probably sitting in bed reading, Wizards, just to get a few tips.
If he read books, he's been very forthright about the fact that he doesn't read. So
he's missing out. He's missing out in that case.
Yeah. But I wouldn't even have taken Jadeja in the team. I would have Kuldeep in the team if I wanted a spinner. I think Kuldeep is an unbelievable asset to the team in India and abroad, but for sure in India. He brings something so different. He brings wrist spin. He brings left arm wrist spin. And he is a good red ball bowler.
Just 6 tests though in India.
Yeah, but he does play first class cricket as well. So he is a good red ball bowler. Unlike Chahal, who doesn't play first class cricket, right? So you have no way of judging that. And Kuldeep is slower through the air. He flights the ball more. He's not afraid to do it. I mean, and he can bowl slightly longer spells, which I think is crucial for Test cricket. So if I was to take 2 spinners, and I don't know if they'll take 2 spinners, but if they do, I would anyway take Ashwin and Kuldeep. Also, the fact that you have Hardik Pandya come back into the team doesn't leave space for Jadeja, even if he was there. Right? Yeah. Because you have space for one all-rounder. And even if Hardik Pandya ends up bowling 10 overs in an innings, or nothing at all, in India, I think India can afford to take a chance of not having him there. Which in Australia they couldn't have. They couldn't carry him through the tour, knowing he wouldn't be able to bowl at all.
I think Ashwin will definitely need a strong support. Do you think India, that there wouldn't be a situation where India only played 1 spinner? Surely.
I seriously doubt it, because also remember that in Australia, India played 1 spinner before Jadeja came, because Hanuma Vihari could theoretically bowl off spin. Vihari is not there now. Your only choice is asking Rohit Sharma to bowl off spin, which is ridiculous in a Test match, honestly. I mean, how many overs is he going to bowl? So yeah, I suspect it's going to be 3 pace bowlers, 2 spinners. And who did we say? So we said Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill, Pujara, Kohli, Rahane, Pandya. That's 6. Then if you put Pant obviously at 7, you need a wicket keeper. So then that leaves 2 pace bowlers, 2 spinners, plus Pandya to bowl pace for whenever needed. So you might actually see India going in with that attack, or in Chennai, I would think they'd be very brave to go in with only 1 spinner. I would go in with 2.
Yeah, and it will turn after.
I think it will turn. I mean, regardless of the English
possibly 2, but it will turn. Ashwin, I mean, was 377 wickets, 74 tests. Against England, 56 wickets at 36.5 in 15
How much
tests.
of that is at home?
I
Because
don't have
Ashwin has the best record among all spinners in Indian cricketing history at home.
Okay.
Better than Prasanna, better than Bishan Bedi, better than Chandrasekhar, Venkatraghavan in terms of being impactful.
Got it. I was just trying to have a quick look to see if I could do that. Give you that information. Let's see if I can find Ashwin at home. Is that who we're after?
Yeah. Against England.
Bear with me a second. I can't, while I'm recording, I can't look that up. So I'll have to let you do that. Sadly, you'll have to do that for us. But yeah, so, well, that's all right. Let's talk about the England spin attack then.
Yeah.
Because I suspect you're, I'm sure Messrs. Kohli and Pujara are having sleepless nights. But there are a lot of things to be said for Leach and Bess. If they play them, we'll come on and have a chat with about Moeen Ali as well. The things going in Jack Leach and Dom Bess's favour, they're in form.
Yep.
They've taken wickets, albeit somewhat fortuitously on the odd occasion in against a sort of rather some suicidal Sri Lankan batting.
Sorry, can I interrupt you with the number we were looking for?
Yes.
So Ashwin's taken 42 wickets against England at home, which is the fourth highest for an Indian after Chandra Kumble and Bishan Bedi. Mm-hmm. And he's on the last tour. I think he took 28 of them in the five tests at an average of 30. So he's been reasonably successful. Let's put it this way.
I think he managed to get Alistair Cook on a number of occasions when I looked at,
including in England, a couple of times in England. Beautiful deliveries until he got injured. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Back to
let's go back to the Somerset pairing. I don't care where they think Bess is going off to play. They will always be the Somerset pairing. Exactly. Doesn't sound right, does it?
No.
So Jack Leach, 44 wickets at 30.5, Bess 31 at 31. They're coming into this series on runner form, having had good recent experience on subcontinental wickets. Jack Leach has said he's been studying how both Panesar and Swan bowled in 2016, looking to get that little bit of extra speed through the air. Now, that's not easier said than done.
No.
If you suddenly said to, I don't know, Jimmy Anderson, I know you're averaging 85 kilometres an hour. Can you rattle it up to 88 for the next 3 overs?
Exactly.
It's not that straightforward to
remember that Leach is also so different as a bowler from Panesar and Swan. He's much flatter. He doesn't quite have the loop that that the other two did, and so for me, he just reminds me so much more of Jadeja than any other spinner. Just because of the way he bowls. Of course, it's his accuracy as well, which makes me say that, right? I mean, he's on a little 50 penny coin, day in, day out. If you want him to do that, I just don't think he has. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I just don't think he has the skill yet to make that transition so quickly, regardless of what he's studied, and be able to impart the drift, the flight that is needed to get those wickets and the speed.
I think the one thing that they've got in their favour,
combination is very difficult. You realize?
I understand it's very difficult, but I think one thing, they've got some things going in their favour apart from that recent experience. I think they are very used to operating as a pair, and I think spinners operating in tandem that are used to each other can be judged as a unit as well as just as individual spinners, and I think they definitely have that very strongly in their favour. They stand out amongst, I have to say, not the the richest crop of spinning talent in England at the moment. but they've honed their skills on the dust bowls of Hyderabad down in Somerset.
Yeah.
And they are the combination of right arm, left arm, which is always a challenge if it's well executed. So,
which is why I like Ashwin and Kuldeep or Ashwin and Jadeja.
Precisely.
I mean, the same
precisely. And of all series, as a spin bowler in Test cricket, to go and prove your mettle, and there is undoubtedly questions about both, where better to do it than in the lion's mouth in India. I have a feeling that they are not Swan and Panesar in their pomp, who we know in 2012 were what, 20 wickets, wasn't it, for Graham Spon at 24, Monty 17 wickets at 26, and they got the big wickets as well. They aren't that, but they have a unity between them. They have the experience on turning wickets. They can operate as a pair, and they come into it on form, and they both have points to prove. That's a pretty. It's a case to prove rather than a case proven. But boy, is that a things in their favour and an incentive to them to do well in this particular series.
I am a bigger fan of Bess than I am of Leach, and we've discussed this before, I think.
Yeah.
The little part which I found disappointing in Bess in Sri Lanka was he wasn't getting the drift I've seen him get before, but I think that can be quickly corrected. And if he does get that drift, which is very necessary to succeed in India as an off spinner, I think they could be a good combination to have. But the one thing that I want you to remember is that we're in 2021. The last time England came there was 2016, when Panesar and Swanee played there. Was even a few years, but 4 years before that, and the wickets have substantially changed because India's bowling attacks changed. So I think anyone who believes that, yes, it's important for spinners to go and prove themselves in India, but anyone who believes that they can come to India today and find the same kind of surfaces on which they need to prove themselves are operating in fool's paradise, because they're not going to get that. It's not in India's interest to have those pitches. And in 2016, 2017, India had those pitches and got very badly bruised by doing that.
Broad and Jimmy then.
Absolutely. I think the combination of pace and spin is what's going to do it. I don't think, regardless of how well Bess and Leach bowl, that they are going to be the decisive factor in anything here.
Well, I think England
in the way that Panesar and Swan were.
England certainly have strength in depth. We looked at those stats right at the beginning of the show, and even where they've lost, bar that 4-0 thumping, they've managed to draw quite a few. And they've come close. NASA nearly did it in 2001 with a pretty second-string side. I think we might see some attritional cricket, but I think what England have in their favour, unlike NASA's armoury back then, would be they're just more adaptable. I think the experience of the IPL, of playing in India, just the modern game, has made them be able to change gears quicker than even what, I suppose, best part of 20 years ago. Well, it was 20 years ago, wasn't it? 2001. Sides could do then. Now, I've got another couple of questions.
I think the batting's weaker, though, Tony. I mean, I think we both would agree on that you've got Root, you've got Jos Buttler, who I have a lot of time for. But, I mean, you look at the rest of the England batting, and it's not really the strongest batting lineup in the world. The bowling's so much better.
I think
so.
You're doing a disservice to Ollie Pope, although again, perhaps as yet unproven, and comes in not having had to.
I'm going by the what we have proven right now, and maybe there've been so many English players. India's been the launch pad for their career. I mean, Mike Gatting for one, right?
Oh,
so why not?
I take your point, but I think if you look at Pope, Root, Folkes when he comes in, Joss Butler with Indian experience and the ability to turn a game, I think even the openers. If I look at Sibley and Crawley, they didn't cover themselves in glory, bar the last wicket innings in Sri Lanka when Sibley came good, but they will get more seam to face up top than they ever got in Sri Lanka. So, and there's one big X factor that I was going to come on to. Who do you think is the best all-rounder on both sides?
If he's bowling, Hardik Pandya. I'm just kidding. Of course. I mean, I was avoiding talking about him, but of course you've got Ben.
Well, I wasn't going to let you get away with that, was I?
No. But Ben Stokes is an X factor. I mean, we all know that, right? I mean, when the going gets tough, he gets going, right? So he's a bit bottomish in that respect, right? There's something that needs to get him going. But if Butler, Root, and Stokes, and I honestly don't know how Olipop's going to go, but if you've got Butler, Stokes, and Root get going in every innings or every test match, you're going to put on a lot of runs. But what I also wanted to point out at the same time was that even when Alistair Cook came with his team and England lost 4-0, it was not like you were not putting on runs. You were putting on a lot of runs.
That of course was at Chennai. Didn't England make 430 something? And probably thought we're doing very nicely here until
you lose the toss and you put on 400-500 runs. That's and then you lose the match. That's just outrageous, right? But so that can happen as well. But I just think that overall India's probably got a better balance. Whether they're going to I was being very brave when I told you that it's a 3-1 score line. It could well be, but I think India's going to have to play out of their skin to really win 3-1, and they need to do what, 2-0 or 3-1 to go to the final of the World Test Championship, something like that.
Yeah, right? Which may or may not be at Lord's.
Oh, is that right?
Well, it depends on the state of our lockdowns and things, how far we are with vaccines.
But it's still going to be in England.
It is, and believe me, no disrespect to any of my Hampshire friends, but if you're sitting there, I can't imagine they're sitting there in the hotel rooms of Chennai or Mumbai, punching the air, going, "Yay, Southampton, a final!" Yep. It's a bit like saying, "Hey, Vicarage Road, the FA Cup final." It's it's not gonna.
If you don't have spectators anyway, doesn't matter where you're playing.
See. So look, I've got another question for you.
Sure.
It was a horrible 36. Everyone's heart bled for India, and how they bounced back. Kohli, of course, was part of that. Then he went home for all the right reasons. Ajinkya Rahane stepped up to the plate magnificently. Mm-hmm. They coped with what people were calling their C team. Siraj, for example, came in, did fantastically. Washington Sundar came in, did fantastically. And yet, some of the big guns are now back. Those young guns have been pushed aside. Rahane has said, "You will always be my captain." Really? Are not some of those players just a little bit noses out of joint, given they had been so magnificent in Australia to find themselves now sitting on the sidelines?
So the two things you're asking me here, right? One is about Kohli Rahane, as far as the captaincy is concerned, and the other is about the players who did well, what they would feel like staying out. I think the players who did well, who came in, Siraj, Saini, Natarajan, Sundar, these were not even in the original team, right? They were net bowlers. Siraj, even Siraj wasn't there in the beginning. He came in, I think, when Shami got injured. Mm-hmm. So these were all net bowlers who were retained after the one-day and T20 series to help the team practice. And in the unlikely event that there would be multiple injuries. Well, that unlikely Six Sigma event became a reality, and all of them ended up playing. I don't think the Indian cricket establishment is given to sentiments, and it should not be, because we're playing a professional game here. I think you have a team which has strived a lot to be a truly high-performing sports team. Sentiment has no place here. If you've got players who do not make the first 11, I don't care what they think. If they've done magnificently, they've done magnificently because they've got a chance through a chance event. If they were good enough to be in the first 11, they would have been in the first 11 to begin with. Okay, so that's my answer to that. I'm sympathetic to how they would feel, but I think they will be realistic because they are part of the process, the much longer process that's going on in Indian cricket. You've got Washington Sundar, who's 21. This is the first time when he bowled in Australia where he's actually bowled like a red ball bowler should be bowling, and he's obviously picked up a lot of things. Before that, he was a slow bowler. That's how he was bowling. He's 21. And Ashwin's not going to play forever. So if he continues playing first-class cricket and he plays well, and I don't care what he does in the IPL because that's irrelevant as far as Test cricket's concerned. In that case, maybe he takes over from Ashwin at some point in time, right? But he'll have to wait his turn.
I agree. It's interesting you say that. Let's just a couple of things to sort of lead us to a close.
Sure.
The IPL is an interesting point to me.
Sorry?
The IPL is an interesting point. You say it's completely irrelevant, and it is in so many ways, 2020 being so different. But some of the adaptability and some of the ability to do things with a ball, even a white ball in Indian conditions.
Oh, no. I'm not getting into
I think the IPL has been a positive benefit.
Oh, completely. It's had a huge positive benefits. I'm just saying that how Washington Sundar plays in the IPL is not relevant to him getting into that first 11.
Okay.
That was my only point. I'm a huge fan of what IPL's brought to Indian cricket. So I won't even go there. Going to the Rahane Kohli question, this is Kohli's team. He's built this team over the past 5 years. If he had not put the focus on the physical element of the team, this team wouldn't have even been where it is today, right? If he had not given the empowerment to the bowling, the way he works is that the bowling squad is empowered to run the play as they want and not how he wants. And they make the plans and tell him, this is how we are going to bowl in a test match. Okay. And that's how he's put the process in place. So we are here because of what's happened in the past 5 years. Rahane is a stand-in captain. If Kohli at some point in time decides he doesn't want to play or he's not even in good form, let's say in 2 years' time to be in the team, Rahane can be the captain. At the moment, all he did was come in and do a magnificent job as a stand-in captain. I'll give you an example of a Rahane Kohli thing as far as batting is concerned. The moment 36 all-out happened and Rahane captained the team, scored his century, actually, not even about the captaincy, when he scored his century at MCG, there were Indian journalists on Twitter saying that Rahane should be permanently the captain. This is only MCG. India's not even won the
and of course, if it's on Twitter, it must be true.
Exactly. And these are very senior journalists, right? So they go in and say that Rahane should be the captain because Kohli is so bad that he dropped him even when he was vice captain. Okay. And so what happened was 2 years ago, which wasn't even 2 years ago, it was like 3 years ago. What happened was that in South Africa, Rahane was in horrendous form. Okay. And for 2 tests, he was dropped. He came back, he played well, and he stayed in the team. Now, is there any law anywhere that a vice captain cannot be dropped? Not that I know of, right? So the other thing is that in England, in India, you will remember Karun Nair scoring a triple century.
300, yes, indeed.
Right?
And India won by an innings and 75 runs.
Exactly.
That was at Chennai.
And then he never played again, right? Or he played one more. I think he played one more test match thereafter. And there's been a lot of flack given to Kohli for the fact that a triple centurion scorer and you destroy his career by not retaining him. What people conveniently forget is that Karun Nair came in place of an injured Rahane. And in the next match, Kohli made a statement saying that this is Rahane's place. And there was a substitute for him who scored a triple century. There isn't another slot in the team right now for him. So I cannot take him. I have to give the space back to Rahane. Now, that's what the relationship between the two is like. That's the amount of support that Kohli's given Rahane over the period of time. So all this talk about, Rahane saying that, Kohli's my captain, take it as you will, right? But I think the point is even Rahane knows that this is how it's going to work. And I don't think he's a very smart person. I don't think he has any qualms about going and being the vice captain again. He knew very well that was a temporary position.
Okay. Well, let's draw things to a conclusion. I think you've already said that what you felt your score was going to be. So your case for the defence, or indeed the prosecution, I'm not quite sure which one you are, but your case anyway, give it to me one more time. What do you think the scoreline is going to be and the primary reasons why? Your concluding arguments, sir.
I think it's 3-1 in favour of India. I would have said maybe 2-0, but I was generous for a couple of reasons. One, I was generous because, maybe we should we are Indians, we're very nice towards guests, so sometimes we let them win. So perhaps give one test for that. No, but more seriously, I think more and more it's become difficult to see draws in tests everywhere, although we saw one in Australia, of course. But in India, again, in recent years, it's become more difficult to see draws. So are we going to see a draw? Maybe we will. If we see a draw, maybe it's going to be 2-1, I think. But if we don't see a draw, I would think we would have a 3-1 score.
Okay, well, I'm going for 1-1. So I am seeing draws. I think India will win one in Chennai. And I think England will win one in Ahmedabad.
So England will play at Southampton.
So if the series is a draw,
they play New Zealand, who seem to have gone up without doing anything terribly.
Well, New Zealand are everybody's
not mine
team a lot of the time. I think a combination of the adaptability and greater strength in depth than you're giving England credit for, to a certain extent. Stokes, I think they have very much the outstanding all-rounder. I think the attack is perhaps better balanced than you're giving it credit for. But I do
I think is a push.
Okay. Well, look.
Regardless.
You're going 3-1. I'm going 1-1. When the world turns the way we want it to turn again, then there's going to be a beer in it either way.
Exactly.
And it's going to be one to savour. You can hear, of course you can, every ball of it on Guerrilla Cricket. GuerillaCricket.com. You can get us on Facebook at GuerillaCricket.com on Facebook. You can listen to us, of course, on with our colleagues at Crick Tracker on Crick Tracker India. You can get us on Hot Mic. You can get us on YouTube, and I'm sure they'll tune in and any other number of ways you can find us. We will be there. Anindo will be there. I will be there. Hendo will be there. The Bear will be there. Lots of others will be there. It's going to be fun, and we will see who is right. Anindo,
one of the two of us will be eating our words. We'll see
one
who that is.
of the two of us will be eating our words, washed down, no doubt, with a fine cup of English tea.
Absolutely.
And we shall see how we go from there. Anindo, as ever, thank you very much. I will see you in the next few days and let the battle commence. Take care.
Let's go.
And thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Guerrilla Cricket.
Revolutionary cricket commentary.